But I never forget coming back on the airplane when we had beat the Bengals, to be in the playoffs. And we got off the plane. There were so many people. Somebody said there were like 20, 25,000 people at the airport. And this was at 10 o'clock at night. And that just absolutely amazed me.
Hello again, Browns fans, and welcome to another edition of Club 46, driven by Bridgestone. I'm Jay Crawford. So good to be with you again as we continue our series of sitting down with current and former Cleveland Brown greats. And this week we are thrilled to be joined by number 43, the old fullback for the 70s and 80s Cleveland Browns, Mike Pruitt. Welcome to Club 46. Very good to see you again. How are you?
I'm doing fine, Jay. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I know our fans are very anxious to hear from you, to what you're doing these days, and also some of your old memories of playing for some Cleveland Browns teams that were just so memorable, gave us many heart attacks, but also gave us many great memories.
Very true.
Mike, I like to start each week by asking the player for their favorite memory during their time with the Cleveland Browns. And you had so many highlights, but for you, what's the one thing that stands out the most about your time in Cleveland?
Well, it was like you said, we had many good times, but I never forget coming back on the airplane, or I think it was when we had, beat the Bengals, to be in the playoffs.
Powerful Mike Pruitt was the weapon as the Browns drove downfield in another race with the clock.
And we got off the plane. There were so many people. Somebody said there were like 20, 25,000 people at the airport. And this was at 10 o'clock at night. And that just absolutely amazed me. I figured, okay, we may see a few people like family and everything else, but you couldn't find your car because there were so many people.
I remember that time very well. It was a period of a drought by today's standards. I don't think it qualifies as a drought. It had been, I believe, 8 years since the Browns had made the playoffs last. What did you feel from the city finally getting over that hump in '79 and leading that team to the playoffs?
Well, you know what? I thought the city was great anyway. I mean, I have, going to and knowing a few guys on different teams, nobody treats their players like the Cleveland Browns fans treat their players. And I noticed this when I left and I went to Kansas City, for a few years, after being with the Browns. They don't treat their players like the fans treat their players here in Cleveland. It's just, I don't think the only other city that I think is somewhat similar or close is maybe Denver. The Broncos.
Yeah, very interesting. We'll come back and we'll talk much more about the Cleveland Browns, your memories and your times here with the franchise. But now I want to go back to the beginning. Take us back to the early years of Mike Pruitt growing up in Chicago. What was life like for a youngster growing up in Chicago during your years?
Well, it was interesting growing up in Chicago, now that I think back on it, all those years. We grew up on the south side of Chicago, and, we were somewhat poor, but, when you're a child, you don't know you're poor. This is just the way it is, and you just live it. But I would get up in the first thing in the morning and I would go outside, and didn't come back until my mother said you had to be back home before the street lights came on. So I would get out and we'd get together with friends. We play baseball. They call it a strikeout at this time. You paint a box on the wall with the X on it, and you had a rubber ball and you would hit it.
I remember. If the ball was in the box, it's a strike.
That's exactly right. See, you going back a few years too now.
I've got some years under my belt, Mike.
But yeah, we did a lot of that. And my first love was track.
Yeah.
I started running track when I was 9 years old. And I never forget the coach in the area tested us. And, if you, ran so fast, he would put you on the city's track team. So I guess I made the city's track team, and I figured, wow, man, I can't believe I made it. But I got all these ribbons in the 50-yard dash. I had all these ribbons. My mother kept saying, "Where are you getting these ribbons from?" And my mother knew nothing about sports. She thought football was stupid anyway. She just said, "This is a stupid sport. All you do is come home hurt all the time." But track was my first love, and I thought I was going to be an Olympian track and in track. Those days never worked out.
Well, for a man that grew into the size that you were as a player, you always possessed the speed of a much smaller person. And do you look back to your early years of running track as sort of helping you learn how to handle that speed?
Yes, I do. Matter of fact, like I said, when I started running track at about 8 to 9 years old, the track coach taught us how to run. And he taught us how to build our speed, so he had these speed drills that he would put us through. And he had us at that time even running up hills and running downhill. And so, most of the speed is you're born with it,
Sure.
But he can teach you how to, the coach can teach you how to run actually faster. So to me, I was always amazed that none of my brothers and sisters, even my older brother, uh, couldn't outrun me. And I thought, because he was older, he was, bigger, he could outrun me. But
Sure.
I found that even the older kids couldn't outrun me, so it was something that I was blessed with.
Well, how far did you take track? Did you run through high school? Did you run at
Yes,
Purdue?
I did. I ran through high school, and I never forget, I did run at Purdue. I ran my freshman and going into my sophomore year. This was indoor. And the coach came up to me. He says, "Mike," because, the track season, especially indoor, took place during the spring football. So he says, "Mike, I got something to talk to you about. I don't think you're going to make a whole lot of money in track, but I do think that you've possibility to make some money in football. So I think you should come to spring training." That was the end of my track days.
Sadly, that's the way it is. Track and field
Yeah.
certainly doesn't pay as well as football.
No, that's true. So that ended my track days.
So let's go back, Mike. What was life like for you growing up in your family? How many siblings did you have? What was that like?
It was actually, it was 5 of us, 4 boys, 1 girl. And I'm the middle child, so the middle child don't get no love, you know what I mean?
I'm the
youngest
middle of
get the
5
love.
too, Mike. I understand.
But it was a great family. I had both my mother and my father. My father worked 2 jobs. So I didn't see my father much, but my mother was the person who disciplined us. And I tell this story, which is a true story, that when I was 17, and I had to be home by, 10:30 before the streetlights came on. But my friends would always say, "Mike, you got to go home, man. Are you a sissy or something? Man, you 17 years old. You can't stay out." They stay out to 12, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. So I'm thinking, you know what? I ain't going home. You know what I mean? I'm going to stick around, hang out with the guy. Yeah, I'm 17. So it goes to 11:30, 12 o'clock. And then one of the guys said, "Man, ain't that your mother coming down the street?" I said, "Oh, man." My mother had a little broom in her hand. And I had to cross on the other side of the street and go home. And I never forget, she beat me with a broom. She beat me with a shoe. And she said, "You're not going to be out here in these streets all night. Ain't nothing going on after 11 o'clock at night but trouble. And you're not going to be out in these streets." Jay, that was the best thing that ever happened to me, that I wasn't out, because I was home And a lot of those guys that I grew up with, some died, some was on drugs, and some, dropped out of high school. All those things, and I give my mother a lot of credit. She knew all those things when I didn't know. And she said, you are not going to be out here in these streets. You are not going to do this. And that was the best thing that she ever done for me.
Moms know best. And
They
that's,
do.
Similar advice was given to me, and I gave it to my kids. After 11 o'clock, nothing good goes on out there.
Ain't nothing good going on. You're right.
You need to have your butt in the home. That's where you need to be.
That is the truth. That is.
Would you say that was Dad an influence in your love of sports? How did that come about?
No, my dad never played sports. He was from Georgia, and a lot of people don't know. My father was only 5'8", and I think he weighed 150 pounds. And yeah, my father was real small. And all my brothers were 6 feet and over 200 pounds, including my sister is 6 feet. So my aunt used to always tell my mother, I don't know where you got these kids from.
How old were you, Mike, when you fell into football? And how did that happen?
You know what? Actually, I didn't play organized football because they didn't have what they have now, junior leagues and stuff like that. I didn't play organized football until I got to high school.
Really?
Right. And my brother, I never forget, my older brother was an offensive lineman in high school, So when I got there, the coach was there, and he figured, hey, my brother was an all-state offensive lineman. That's what he's going to make me. Offensive lineman. And I hated it. As a matter of fact, as a sophomore, I quit the team. I figured I ain't gonna do this. I don't like being a lineman. And the coach came to my mother's house. He said, I'd like to have Mike back on the team, you know what I mean? And I said, Coach, I don't want to play on the line. Give me a chance at running back, you know what I mean? He said, oh, okay, come on back out then. So I came on back out. He put me right back on the line.
The old bait
and then
and
all
switch.
the running back, it's unfortunate for me, but all the running backs got hurt. He says, Mike, I'm putting you at running back, because everybody's hurt and everything else. So I remember we were playing a game. I probably only 45 days at running back, you know what I mean, learning the plays and everything else. And we played the game. I got a chance to run the ball. I think it was 180 to 200 yards rushing that I had that day.
As running back?
First game as a running back.
And a star is born.
And that's what he said. He said, dog, I can't believe this. I should have had you at running back a long time ago. I said, I told you that, Coach. I told you that.
And your days as an offensive lineman were officially
My
over.
day with offensive lineman was over. Then I became from running back from there on out.
Mike, I'm wondering, because you were a fullback at Purdue and in the NFL, and obviously the fullback position then was much different than it is today.
Right.
Do you think that your brief time as an offensive lineman, learning how to use body weight leverage and blocking, do you think that at all helped in your ability to play a position that also required you to be the first guy through the hole and to hit somebody and to block someone? You already had that experience.
Yeah, Jay, it's true, but it was a little different for me. Even though I played the fullback position, even at the Browns, when I played the fullback position, I got a chance to run the ball more than a halfback. You know what I mean?
Yeah, much different time.
Right, yeah. So even as a fullback in high school, I got to run the ball more than the halfback because, like I said, I had more success than the halfback. So even though I was up front, a lot of mine were the quick hitters, right up the middle. And I love that even with the Browns, I love those quick hitters, you know what I mean? Because you're through by the time everybody else figure out, what happened.
Right.
You're down the field already.
Chasing you now.
That's right. They're chasing you now. That's true too. So even though I was a fullback, I wasn't the greatest blocker. And Greg Pruitt probably can tell you that. You know, I wasn't the greatest blocker, but neither was he.
Yeah, and he would also tell us that too.
Yeah.
So, Mike, at what point in your high school career did you realize, hey, I might be good enough to do this at the collegiate level?
You know what? I thought so as a senior. And I was surprised because I was an all-state, running back and everything else, that I began to get all these letters from different colleges and schools. And my mother kept saying, why are you getting all these letters? Which, like I said, she never understood football. To her, it was stupid stuff. She said, why are you getting all these letters? I said, Mom, they're recruiting me. So I told her I was going to Iowa. I told her I was going to Michigan. She said, why are you going all these different places? Just choose one college. I said, Mom, they're recruiting me. I'm going to check out the different places. And so I did. I went and checked out a lot of different colleges. And then when I went to Purdue, this is crazy, but I went to Purdue, and there was a guy already there from the Chicago area by the name of Otis Armstrong. I don't know if you remember Otis Armstrong.
Oh, I do.
Yeah. But Otis Armstrong and Daryl Stingley.
Wow.
Were there. And I'm thinking, wow, man, these guys are from the Chicago area and they're at Purdue? I said, wow, okay. So they were in charge of showing me around the campus and everything else. Well, they took me by this guy's house and everything else. And they say, Mike, we're going to show you around. We'll be back. He didn't come back to the next day.
Chicago hospitality.
Right, Chicago hospitality. So I never got to see the campus. And I was due to go back the next day. But I liked the school so much. I said, you know what? These guys are from Chicago. They've had success here. You know what? It's not that far from Chicago, 2.5 hours, drive. I said, my mom may want to come to the game maybe one of these days, so I think I'll go to Purdue. And that was the best decision I made. Yep.
When you look back on that, was Mom able to come and see you at all as a high school football player?
No, she never, like I said, she never was interested. When she found out that I got a scholarship, because my sisters and brothers all had to pay for school, she said, you don't have to pay for school. You don't have to pay for nothing. I said, no, Mama, I'm on scholarship. How are they doing this? How are they letting you go to school without paying?
Oh.
But she did come to one game. She didn't understand anything. All she was doing was looking around and seeing all these people at one place. She was thinking, I can't believe all these people come to one place to watch you guys run around on the field and stuff like that.
That's beautiful.
So she was amazed by that. All these people in one place at the stadium. I think it was 65,000. She said, wow, I can't believe all these people in one place.
What did Pops think of it? What was his impression?
He was glad to see me leave the area. You know what I mean? Because he knew that, if you were around that, you're going to be doing the same thing that they're doing, which is a bunch of nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, things that lead to no good, really.
Well, things that lead to no good. That's exactly right. So I was glad to actually leave the area, because you got to meet a lot of different people. I had never met anybody from the country.
Wow.
And I met a lot of people from the country at Purdue.
Yeah, a lot of them hang out in West Lafayette.
Yeah. And I had seen so many different people, you know what I mean, that it amazed me. The classrooms, because our classrooms maybe have, maybe 15, 20 people. I was in these big theaters with 100, 120 people, and this is my biology class. I'm thinking, my goodness. You know what I mean? So to me, it was definitely an awakening going off to a big school like Purdue.
Mike, what did you study at Purdue?
I was a business major.
Business.
I thought I was going to be an actor like Jim Brown. I figured, well, going to, theater and stuff like that. I did do
Sure.
theater maybe for about a half a year or something like that.
Right.
And I think, you know what, I ain't crazy about this, So I had to switch majors quickly.
So what was the bigger shock for you? The transition from high school football to college football, or the transition from life as a high school, living in a home with some pretty strict rules, to going to West Lafayette at a time when everybody was learning how to be an adult and kind of melding together with all these people from all these different places across the country coming together? What was the bigger shock for you?
Just the latter part. The biggest shock for me was leaving inner city Chicago, where you know everybody and you really don't venture out much because you have everything in the neighborhood. You got the stores in the neighborhood, you have your different things. So you never really have to come out of the neighborhood. And this was a rude awakening to me, going to Purdue with 40,000 students, and you're going to different classes, or you're meeting people from different countries. Actually, we had some people from different countries, and that just actually amazed me, because again, I really felt out of place. I called my mother. I said, the classes were hard. You had to study and everything else. You go to study hall, and there's 200 people at study hall. I'm thinking, man. So I called my mother as a freshman because I was having problems, on the freshman team. Yeah, I got there. I figured, I'm going to get to play right away. They had me on the freshman team, and I was I was fifth on the fifth running back on the freshman team. I was behind the coach's son.
Fairly or
who ran a
unfairly?
5 flat 40. I felt so demoralized. I called my mother and said, I can't do this. I'm coming home. She said, you are not coming home. She said, ain't nothing here for you. You're going to stay there. You're going to stick it out, and you're going to adapt where you are. She said, there's nothing here. You're not coming home. So you just stay right there and stick it out. Again, Mama was right. I stayed there. Yep, I stuck it out. And I went from 15 to starting as a sophomore.
Really?
Yeah, starting as a sophomore.
What do you attribute that to?
You know what? I was able to break loose and, and run for touchdowns. But you know what happened to me, Jay?
What happened?
And I tell everybody this. I even tell my sons this. I learned something that time. I never forget. I was the only sophomore starting as a running back on the whole team. I was the only sophomore starting. So I got the big head. You know how you get the big head? I'm thinking I'm the only sophomore starting and everything else. And there was a game, I think it was Northwestern. I think I fumbled 3 or 4 times. And they took me out of the game. And they put in this guy who was actually a senior. I never forget his name, was Pete Groth. He was a senior, and I was a sophomore. So they put him in because I was fumbling, and I never got the job back that whole sophomore year. I sat on the bench. That was so demoralizing, but I learned something, is that you can't think that you're all of that, because you can be replaced. You definitely can be replaced. So I had to work my way back as a junior to get the job back. And I'll never forget, I'll never be cocky or thinking that I'm all that again, because my mother always said, pride goes before a fall. She said, look out, that tree is coming down. You just don't want to be under it when it comes down. So I always thought about that. You know what? You always stay humble. No matter what it is that you're doing and that you accomplish, you stay humble. And I've seen so many guys, and that happened, the same thing happened to them. They thought that they were big stuff. Before you know it, they were gone. You think, whatever happened to what was his name again?
Right. How soon we forget.
That's true too. That is true.
Mike, it's funny, in talking with you, Mom may not have known much about football, but she may have taught you the most valuable lessons of your life, not just about life, but lessons that you could transfer into your football days.
You know what's very true. It's interesting you mentioned that, Jay, because you are so right. My mother only had a fourth grade education coming from Arkansas, and her and my father left the South, and they came to Chicago just for, they say, a few months, but they never left because they got jobs and they never left. But my mother, even though she wasn't educated, she had tons and tons of street sense, and she had common sense, and she had experience behind her. My mother may not have had the education that she probably could have, but she had way more than education, especially what I needed. And all five of us, because all five of us went and finished college, all five of us from the inner city. You know?
I've often said, give me common sense over book learned knowledge any day, because the life lessons are the things that will propel you to success. I had a mother very similar to yours, Mike, and looking back on many of the life lessons I learned, I didn't learn them in classrooms or out of books at college.
No, very
I learned
true.
them from my mother and father. So your big fat serving a humble pie as a sophomore,
right,
projected you to work harder before your junior season, where that's where you really made a name for yourself at the collegiate level. And of course your senior year, where you were back up to Archie as a second team all Big Ten running back. Take us through those last 2 years of college. How were those different from your first two?
You know, those first 2 years, I took it for granted, and you know, I just basically went off my physical, you know, ability, and I knew that I had to develop myself not only physically but mentally. I had to be mentally strong as well. So, you know, going into my junior year, I didn't go back home like all the other players did. You know, they left for school, and then, you know, everybody goes home. I told my mother I wasn't coming home, that I was going to stay at Purdue. And, you know, once the students leave, it's like ghost town, because, you know, the Lafayette, Indiana population is only about 17,000, and the students make up 42,000, you know. So once all the students left, it's like ghost town.
It's a big farm town.
It's a big farm town. That's exactly right. So I stayed at Purdue, and I worked out. They let me work out at the stadium and everything else. And I worked out. I ran the stairs. I did all kind of things, physical things. I read up books on how to work out. You know, I was lifting weights to make myself stronger, but I was actually running at midnight. I would go because I didn't want nobody to be bothering me and have to talk to me. So I would run at midnight. You know, run the 2 or 3 or 4 miles at midnight, you know, just to get myself in shape. So when the season started for my junior year, I was in probably the best shape of my life. And I just carried that over even to my senior season as well. I kept those same habits of working out all the time, making myself stronger, make myself stronger mentally. And I would visualize some of the things that, you know, I would do on the field. And I kept doing that, and it kept happening. I'm thinking, wow, I can't believe that. I'm visualizing these things are happening. So I kept doing those things. Matter of fact, I even did it through my whole professional career. You know, after that, you know, after I got cocky and I had to get myself together again, you know what I mean? Then that's when I really started back. I said, I got to get back on that program that I had when I was in college.
Where did you learn the art of visualization? Was that something that was taught to you, or something you just experimented with on your own?
You know, I experimented with it, but I never forget. I read a book that I forget the book on subconscious or something like this. This has been many, many years ago. And Napoleon Hill.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
Napoleon Hill's book, it was Think and Grow Rich, but it was think, you know what I mean? So I'm thinking, oh, wow, man, I'm going to try this, man, can't hurt. Let me try it. So I would sit in a room by myself for maybe a half hour and just visualize things that I wanted to happen. And I was amazed that after a while, a lot of those things happen. And I still do that to this day. Is I still visualize things. I'm thinking, wow, there's something to this. So I began to read other different books on thinking and the subconscious and your conscious mind and those kind of things. And those really enlightened me to how I should even lead my own life.
Wow. So your career arc at Purdue went from 5 deep on the freshman team, starting as a sophomore, to benched due to the fumbling. So you're going up and down and up and down. And then all of a sudden your junior year comes and now you're growing into Mike Pruitt, Big Ten star running back. Your numbers your junior season and your senior season were incredibly impressive. What's your mindset now as you still have school to go, but are you thinking at this point, I'm going to do this for a paycheck one day?
Jay, that's one thing that I never concentrate on is, I figured, I may get drafted, you know what I mean? Like I said, I had humbled myself. So I figured, if I get drafted, fine, you know what I mean? Even if I get drafted in the 4th or 5th round, you know what I mean? I'll make the best of it. See, back then, they didn't tell you that somebody was interested in you or that you were going different places or you may go this round or that round. At that time, it was all what happens. So I figured, maybe some team will be interested. And I never forget, I did get some interest from the New York Jets. And they said, Mike, maybe later rounds, we may take you and everything else. I said, yeah, okay, that's fine. Hey, look, as long as I got the opportunity, I can go from there. So it was draft day and, I'm sitting at home and I told my friends, don't call me and everything else. I'll probably get a call later that day or something like that. So I get a call early in the morning. It's about 9:30. I'm thinking, I told them not to call me. You know what I mean? They would call me and, and pull pranks on me and stuff. You know what I mean? So I get this call at 9:30. I said, man, I told you not to call me. They said, is this Mike Pruitt? I said, yeah, this is Mike Pruitt. I said, come on, don't be playing with me now. Don't play with me. I thought it was one of the guys. Sure. I really did. And they said, no. We're not one of the guys. This is Art Modell, and we just drafted you. The Cleveland Browns we just drafted you. You could hear silence. I didn't know what to say. I was dumbfounded. I'm thinking, are you serious? Are you serious? He said, yeah, Mr. Cleveland Brown, we just drafted you as the number 7th player. Man, I dropped that doggone phone. I started jumping and running. I left Art Modell on the phone.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I'm jumping and running. I left him on the phone. I had to go back and get the phone. I'm sorry. So he said, okay. He said, I'm gonna call you back. I'm gonna have you come into Cleveland and everything else. I hung up, and man, I was running because I lived in an apartment upstairs. And the lady across the hall was saying, what's going on over there? What's going on over there?
I just got drafted.
Yeah, I was shocked. I mean, the 7th player, in the 1st round, taken. I'm thinking that it doesn't happen to people like me. It may happen to somebody like Archie Griffin, who's a Heisman Trophy winner or something. You know what I mean? But not me. But I was shocked. I was thrilled to no end to know that somebody had that much interest in me to want to put that much stock in me.
Where was Archie drafted? I know the Bengals took him, but
Yeah, he was. I think he's like the 25th player, 25th or 26th player in the first round.
So what were you thinking that you're going before this two-time Heisman Trophy winner,
Right?
This sensation, and you get the call 18 picks before he does.
Right, and that's what really shocked me, because there were some other good running backs around the league at the time. Chuck Muncie, I don't know if you remember Chuck Muncie.
I remember Chuck.
And I wasn't surprised Chuck went high, because he was 6'4", 230, 240 pounds at the time. But I was surprised Archie didn't go as high as he did. He went in the first round, but I was shocked. A lot of running backs that had better years that year than me, and I went before they went. And to this day, it still shocks me why, And I'm thinking to myself, well, they already got one Pruitt. Well, they got two Pruitts now.
You really have to credit the Browns, though, because Greg coming out of Oklahoma was very highly thought of as well.
Yeah,
but
I follow his career.
He was a tremendous running back at Oklahoma, and for the Browns to pluck you out with the 7th overall pick, and then for you to have the career that you had, when you run the football for a decade in the NFL, that means you're doing a lot of things right. And that is, by all measures, that is a tremendous career. You really have to credit the Browns for seeing the ability and the talent in you to go out on that limb and take you so early, when you said you were getting interest from the Jets, and that was pretty much it leading up to the draft.
That was it. Yeah.
Wow.
That was it. Yeah, and that surprised me so much that it made me work harder, though. You know what I mean? It made me work harder that somebody would put this kind of faith in me, that, I don't want to let them down. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna do everything I can to make the best of this situation. So again, it was good that it happened to me, but also too, it was a great learning experience for me. And what I mean by learning experience is that, things great like that can happen to you, but they can also turn in a heartbeat and go the other way. And I've seen a lot of guys who were number one draft choice that were bust outs. You probably know as well, So, you got a lot of these guys. I didn't want to be one of those guys that's going to be a number one draft choice at the bust out.
Yeah. Well, there's certainly not a predictor of success, as we've seen through the years.
That's true.
So what's your first experience with the Cleveland Browns then, outside of the phone call from Art where you thought you were being pranked?
You know what? I tell this, and I've told Greg this as well. I was so thrilled to meet Greg Pruitt. You know what I mean? Because I had followed him in college at Oklahoma, runner-up Heisman Trophy winner and everything else. I said, man, this guy is just something. You know what I mean? So I get to Cleveland, and I never forget, our first day of practice, and I go up, I said, hey, Greg, how you doing, man? I followed your career and everything else. Greg shocked me. He said, man, they drafted you so you can block for me. I was shocked. I was in awe. I didn't know what to say. I had my mouth open.
Wow.
Greg was cocky at that time, too.
he had a little bit of arrogance to him.
We're best of friends now. But, man, back I was shocked. And then after a while, I thought about it. I'm thinking, hey, wait a minute. I went back up to Greg, and I said, hey, you were a number 2 draft choice. I was a number 1. Don't you forget that. Oh, boy.
What was your first training camp? Mike, what was your first training camp like?
The first training camp was tough, Jay. It was tough because Forrest Gregg had us doing what you call these ladder drills, where you run 10 yards and you come back. You run 20 yards, you come back. You run 30 yards, you come back. You run 40 yards, all the way to 100 yards, and then you come back. When you come back, you start over again. And you do they call ladder drills, you do about 10 of those. And once everybody's done, everybody is laying on the ground. You know what I mean? I had never, ever worked that hard. I mean, you were spent after, and we had to do these every day after practice, not before, after practice. You know what I mean? We were in great shape. You couldn't say we weren't in shape because we were in great shape. And that really, I had never, ever worked out like that before.
You told us the story of meeting Greg for the first time. Do you have another training camp story that stands out for you during that first training camp?
Yeah, I remember this training camp, and we used to have meetings, you know, afterwards and everything else. And so we're in this like little theater room and everything else, and you know, Forrest Gregg is going over the plays and everything else, and I was nodding because it was after practice, you know, so I'm nodding in the meetings and everything else. So I nod off, and then I wake up. I didn't know Forrest Gregg had told everybody to leave the auditorium. So I'm still asleep. I wake up, the lights off, and there's nobody in the room. I was so embarrassed. I'm thinking, oh my goodness.
So everybody was outside the meeting room?
That's right. They were all, everybody cleared everybody out except me. Left me sitting there. I'm the only one in the whole theater with the lights out, sleep. And this is another Rick. I'm thinking, oh man, I'm in trouble now.
You probably never heard the end of that one.
No, I didn't.
Training camp is so much different now than it was. You guys had doubles. You had full contact hitting. It was attrition. It really was.
Yes.
Even though physically, perhaps the rigors of training camp are much different now, it's still, for incoming rookies, it's still quite an experience. Mike, do you have advice to any incoming rookies on how to handle and navigate that first training camp?
I would say, first of all, come in with a humble attitude. You know what I mean? And do everything that you can to keep yourself in great shape. Because usually doing training camp like that, you know, you got guys that are trying to make the team. You know what I mean? So you can get hurt very, very easily and very, very quickly. And even though you may not have on pads, these guys are trying to make the team, so they may end up tackling you anyway. So you have to make sure you're alert and protect yourself. And don't ever come to training camp to get in shape, because you get left behind.
Yeah, show up ready to go in shape.
That's right. So don't try to come to training camp and get in shape, because you can see a person that's out of shape. You know, all they have to do is run that first, we call them ladder drill, that first ladder drill, and the guys already, they got to give him water, they got to give him CPR and everything else. You know, you know he's out of shape.
Mike, did you have in your rookie season, did you have a welcome to the NFL moment where you kind of said to yourself, okay, I'm here?
You know what? I did have that, and I had that in the Buffalo game. And I never forget, I was I think it was my third year. And, you know, I didn't play much my first 2 years, but I got to play a lot when San Ratigliano came.
Mike Pruitt, who was a #1 draft choice out of Purdue. He's a very interesting young man because he has all the redeemable qualities to be an excellent running back in the National Football League. He seems right now to be a little apprehensive, and I think he's lost a little confidence in himself because he hasn't had the opportunity to play. And we very much want to integrate him into our offense and feel that we want to use him more and try to get him to realize the talent that he had when he was selected as a #1 choice.
He said, this Mike Pruitt here, I'm going to find out what he's like. So I got to play in the Buffalo game. And I had mentioned to Greg, I like these, you know, San Ratigliano, I like these quick hitting plays, you know what I mean? So he put in a quick hitting play for me. And I never forget, I had a quick hitter right up the middle. And that's when I went for my first long run of 73 yards, you know, for a touchdown. And then, you know, San Ratigliano said, I can't believe this. I can't believe a man that 230 pounds could run like that. You know what I mean? So he was getting to know me at the time. He knew about, Greg, because Greg was already there, and a few of the other guys, but he didn't know much about me, So he was learning about me, which really was a great thing for me because I got to learn a lot from some Sam Ritigliano about life. And I think a lot of other guys too learn a lot about life. He used to say this all the time. His favorite phrase were, Mike, in this game, they're gonna get us one day. That means that you're not gonna be in the game. They're gonna get us one day, but they're gonna get you before they get me. He said, so you better keep doing what you're doing because they get us all one day. They're gonna get me one day too. But hey, they're gonna get you before they get me. So I'm gonna keep working. So you better keep working.
As I remember it, wasn't it that third season that Greg went down with an injury?
Yes.
And then everybody got to know, not just Sam Ritigliano, everybody got to know that Mike Pruitt had explosiveness and had speed and could run you over or could run past you both in the same play. What was that like for you as you're getting more of an opportunity and now you're making a real name for yourself in the league?
Jay, it was thrill, but this is something that I somewhat expected. I just didn't know when it was going to happen. But I somewhat expected that because I would think or dream about those kind of things happening. Not Greg getting hurt or anything else, but having my opportunity to play. So when Greg went down with that knee injury, and the coach came to me, he says, Mike, you got to step up. You got to step up. I said, I'm ready, coach. You just give it to me. I'm ready. I'll step up. And that was my opportunity. From then on, I got to play more and more and more, and I got to get the ball more and more and more. So it was a great opportunity for me. But that was the opportunity that I was looking for at some point in time.
Mike, looking back, I want to talk to you about the Raiders divisional playoff game that ended, of course, with Red Right 88. And then this Raiders team goes on to win the Super Bowl. Did you ever get over that?
You know what? It's hard to get over that because I saw us beating the Raiders. I really did. And we were getting down close to scoring. And I couldn't believe that a pass play came in or that they were going to throw a pass. I was thinking, man, this is not the time to throw a pass. You know what I mean? It's cold. The Raiders hated it because they weren't used to that kind of cold weather. You know what I mean? It was easy for us. I'm thinking, man, I know Ozzie will catch anything. He'll catch a fly out of the air. But I'm just thinking, this is not a good time to throw the ball. You know what I mean? We were so close. I think 11-yard line or something. So I was thinking, man. And when he called that play, I heard everybody say, okay. I mean, you got to go with what the quarterback said. But when he threw that pass, it almost felt like, how everything moves in slow motion, It was like slow motion. Intercepting the pass. We were so used to winning at the end of the game that we never thought we would lose. I think that was the hardest thing is, wait a minute, we're not supposed to lose. We're supposed to win at the end of the game. You know what I mean? We're the comeback kids. We're not supposed to lose this. But like I said, it was surreal, and it took really about a year to really, realize that we're not going any farther than this. And then they go on to win the Super Bowl. Then you say to yourself, that was supposed to have been us. Definitely.
Yeah, I often look at that team and say that even though the late 80s and early 90s teams were so good, watching what eventually happened to Denver in the Super Bowl, you realize that the Browns were further away from being a Super Bowl champion than we might have thought. But I always looked at that 79-80 Browns team as perhaps the closest we've ever been to being a Super Bowl champ and perhaps the best team that we've had since '64, which is really saying something. Mike, I want to end by giving you an opportunity to let Browns Nation know what they meant to you, because for your entire career in Cleveland, you heard every Sunday when you took that field what you meant to them. So I would like to give you an opportunity to tell Browns fans what they've meant to you over the years.
I think the Browns fans have meant a tremendous amount to me because they followed us good and bad, through good times and bad times. I've never really had a bad day in Cleveland. That's why I stayed here. That's why many guys stay here after their playing career, because there's so much excitement that the fans bring, to the stadium and to the Cleveland Browns. And I've always been treated with the utmost respect, being here in Cleveland. And actually, I love it here. I mean, I wouldn't really want to be any other. I have no desire ever to go back to Chicago except just to visit. But again, being here and playing for the Cleveland Browns, it's a great organization. I mean, they go back to the 40s and 50s, with Jim Brown and those kind of things. But even those guys who come back, man, they're treated like superheroes. So again, you don't get that everywhere. You think around the league, everybody treats their players the same. Nobody treats their players like Cleveland does. So that's a great thing. Keep doing it.
One final question, post-football life for Mike Pruitt. I know you were in the car business for many years. Right. What's life like for you today?
Right now, I'm retired. I retired from the car business after 27 years. I actually love retirement, because not because you get up when you want to and everything else, because I still get up somewhat early, but it's the fact that you don't have that stress level. My stress level for being in the car business is down to zero now, so you don't have that stress. And I think once you don't have that stress, you have a better life. You have a better lifestyle when you're not stressed out anymore. So actually, I love being retired. I don't care what anybody says. I love it.
Very good. Mike Pruitt, so good to catch up with you. You look great. I love hearing the old stories, and I know our fans and viewers do as well. Thank you so much for spending so much time with us.
All right. Thank you for having me, Jay. You did a great job. Keep it up.
Thank you, sir. The great Mike Pruitt, a multiple-time Pro Bowl player, who famously said after he was released by the Browns, "I'm surprised, but not bitter." And I think that saying sums up a lot about Mike Pruitt, the man. Mike, thank you again, and thank you for watching at home. We invite you to join us again for our next episode of Club 46, Driven by Bridgestone.